Hello, my name is Tamika, and today I am talking about my misadventures with bad rom coms. So, I was watching a new to me rom com on Amazon Prime when I started to change the channel because it was just, they had some awkward chemistry. So, something made me not not change the channel, but exit the movie. And so it was so bad that I decided I need to investigate this as a writer to see what I'm picking up on that's so bad about their chemistry between the main character and the love interest. So I don't make these mistakes in my writing. Although, I mean, it's a little bit different when it's a movie, but still, I felt like even you could tell that there was some blame to be had with the writer of the screenplay. Like there was some stuff in there where you knew it wasn't just the acting that was bad, but it was the writing. I mean, their meet cute was more like a meet ugly. Like okay, so that's what I'm talking about. Now, I would say rom coms are probably they're in my top five when it comes to movies that I like to watch. And some of my favorites would be The Apartment with Shirley MacLaine and Jack Lemmon. Now that's an old one, but I like black and white movies, so that's one of my favorites. Um, I like the Doris Day movies, the ones she did with Rock Hudson. I like Meg Ryan, When Harry Met Sally, and You've Got Mail, and even some of the lesser known ones. I can't think of the name. My mom's ex boyfriend or something like that. I did like that one. Friends with Benefits. That's a good one. But yeah, yeah. So I like rom coms, right? And then the normal, usual actors that you see in those rom coms, like Sandra Bullock, Meg Ryan. Can't think of too many of the male actors in the rom coms. I'm trying to think. No one comes to mind. No one comes to mind. But anyway, the point is, I do like rom coms. And so that's my go to when I want to unwind. So I was watching this film. I'm not going to say the name because I'm not trying to, trash the film. But it was one of those I'm not sure if it was Hallmark, but it's like Hallmark esque. If it wasn't Hallmark, it's that type of rom com. And so the main and the main character, she was the bridesmaid who was getting together with the best man to come up with some ideas for the wedding of their friends. And they met in a coffee shop. And I must say that meet cute, it was a typical meet cute, but it just wasn't clicking the way it should. It was like really awkward to describe it, but it wasn't. Well, first of all, I didn't feel any chemistry with them. But also, like, as I was watching them interact with each other, I could not say I could see those two people together. And even though it's obviously fictional, it's not real life, still, when you're watching a film, the actors, good actors, they can still display chemistry that makes the story believable to the viewer. And it just wasn't coming across with these two people. I was just flabbergasted, I guess. So there was that. And then I must say, the scenes, the scenes had a strange flow about them. Like it seemed to be moving faster than normal, but also like at an unnatural pace. Like they would go from one scene where it was like they were at odds with each other. I mean, it clearly was trying to hit those enemies to lovers beats, but it just wasn't doing it well. And then they would just go from one scene where they really couldn't stand each other, and then the next scene, the love interest was meeting the parents, and it just seemed like so haphazard and like I don't know who came up with this, but it just wasn't clicking right, you know. I don't know. So yeah, that is something I noticed that can help me with my writing because, or your writing, because when you write a story, there needs to be a sensible flow and progression of the story, right? I mean, obviously, you're not going to stay with them hating each other for the entire duration of the story. But at the same time, you just don't want to be clunky about it and just, okay, this minute they hate each other, and then just 3 seconds later, they're meeting the parents. Like, there should be a scene in between there where there showed some movement in the other direction. It shouldn't be just go from hate to love just like that. So that's a bit abrupt and not sensible, okay? But that's what happened in this story. And then there was the conversations they would have. So again, when the love interest met the parents, he was with the main character. I couldn't tell that they were even girlfriend and boyfriend because again, the scenes just were just clunky. So I don't know when they became girlfriend and boyfriend, but apparently they moved to the next level where it's time to meet the parents. And so they're together at her parents' home. So the parents, they answer the door and they're literally standing in the doorway, and the father is giving him 21 questions in the doorway. That was the most unnatural conversation I witnessed ever. I mean, the guy was standing outside, coat on, hasn't been offered to come into the home yet. And the father's like, well, do you drink? Do you do drugs? What do you like? What are your intentions? I mean, it was just the 411 that you would do like at the dinner table over dinner, over a meal, or maybe in the living room with family. Like, it was that kind of conversation that you would have, but like in a more intimate setting, not like in a doorway. And yeah, that's what they did. But hey, what do I know? Okay. I mean, I can only imagine reading it in a book, but just watching it on screen, it definitely read very awkward to me. That's just my opinion, but I would argue it's a fact. So there's that. And then there is the trajectory of the relationship. So, not that there's any standard trajectory, because all relationships are different. Some people, they meet, fall in love, get married in a couple of weeks. Some people, it happens, over the span of 10 years, So, I mean, everyone's different. However, there are certain things that need to make sense, still for the viewer watching or for the reader reading this story, certain things need to make sense. Now, in this particular story, like I said, the meet ugly happened, and then he was talking to his friend about how much he couldn't stand her, and she was talking to her friend about how difficult he was. And then not long after, they were meeting the parents, and then they were talking about marriage. And I don't even remember seeing them get a kiss in. Like I didn't see the first kiss. So that's also why I was confused about when did they become boyfriend and girlfriend because it wasn't clear. Okay, I mean, I didn't see that part. I totally missed it. So yeah, you want to make that clear. They chose not to. And then there is the grand gesture. So when it comes to the grand gesture, I like to do something that makes sense for the story. Every story is different, right? But also you have to factor in who these characters are. What are their personality traits? And what would be reasonably acceptable that they would do. It still needs to be grand, but still it can't be out of character, you know. And that's where the skill comes in as a writer. So their grand gesture was a bit lackluster. Again, it just wasn't quite grand. But you know, you want to do something that suits the character, but also reads like a grand gesture, you know? Like with what Justin Timberlake's character did in Friends with Benefits, you know? Again, that wasn't out of character, and they kind of showed that part of him throughout the movie, but it also was intimate for it to feel like it was just for her, but it also was grand because he brought strangers into the grand gesture by showing her a public display of affection, right? And his apology. But, you know, it doesn't always have to be a public display of love or I'm sorry or will you marry me, whatever. It doesn't always have to be a public display. It can be something intimate and still be grand. You know, grand doesn't necessarily mean public. But again, it's just not an everyday thing that you do. This is not oh, I'm going to take you out to lunch. No, that's not a grand gesture. Okay. You know where it is, I'm going to send you a text. I'm sorry. Doesn't qualify. Okay. But yeah, that's my 2 cents about that. So yeah, that's just what I noticed in that particular film. I just wanted to review it and investigate what was wrong with that love story so that it could help me with my own writing. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Hopefully you found this video helpful, and if you liked it, please give me a like. And I would love it if you subscribed. I upload videos every week on Saturdays. And let me know if you've been watching any bad rom-coms recently. What have you learned from them? What have you taken away from the bad story? I haven't watched too many. I must say, usually, I mean, it does seem like it's an easy formula, but I think that's what makes people think anybody can do it. So sometimes people do get it wrong, but usually they get it right, usually. But I think another thing I noticed about this film is that it was also very predictable. Like, it was predictable in an obvious way that made it boring to watch because you anticipated what was going to happen before it happened because it was very obvious what they were leading up to. Every time you with every scene is like you could tell what they were doing in the scene, and then it just made you want to get to the next part because it's like you already knew what they were aiming for. So yeah, there's a skill to being predictable but not obvious, I guess. And they didn't do that too well. So yeah, that's something to work on. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to wrap this up. I will catch you in the next one. Bye.